Are you looking for affordable office space in Marion? The Professional Building, located at 685 Delaware Avenue, is the place for you. For more information, call 740-383-6803. Office space is now available. Again, telephone number 740-383-6803.
This is Scott Spears. Welcome to Scott Spears Now. Today is going to be a lot of fun because we've reassembled a group that I haven't had together for quite some time to talk about a lot of stuff that's happened over the last 4 months, get everybody's opinion, have a good time. Three of my favorite people: 40th Treasurer of the United States of America, Mary Ellen Withrow, back from Florida. Glad to have her back.
Thank you.
Charlie Evers, longtime Marion broadcaster, namesake for Buckeye Chuck. Big claim to fame, Charlie,
yeah.
I know.
That's better than the hedgehog in Britain.
Somebody asked me the other day, Charlie, how many years in broadcasting here?
Around 50.
50.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
52.
Recent inductee into the Broadcasters Hall of Fame? We can add that now.
Yeah, I haven't been on the air since.
Well, if that didn't end your career, that was the end. You're into the Hall of Fame, you're out. And, of course, Marianne Michaels, who recently guest hosted this program, did a great episode with Austin Jacob on the Peace Corps. That episode was watched by quite a few people.
Well, and he's such a fine young man. And I hope that he keeps in touch, because I'd love to hear about him as he proceeds. He hasn't even gone yet, has he?
No, I think May is when he takes off, right after graduation.
Yeah.
But it was great to see you back in the host chair.
Yeah,
moderating.
It's been a long time.
Well, years at WCMH and WMRN. For those who don't know, but you should if you don't. Look it up. I'm going to talk about a lot of things, and I want to start off kind of interestingly with a couple of life's well-lived guests on this program. Trella Romine passed away at 97 back in February. She was on this program in August. I believe her son, David, told me that was her last media appearance. Charlie, I know you had long association with Trella. Thoughts on Trella, memories?
Yeah, probably more years than I can remember. Probably 50-some years or more. Yeah, I was always amazed at how proficient she was at the internet, or, well, the computer. She did most of her stuff, composing with the computer. That was really something. And her knowledge of birds and life, plant life, great. I learned a lot.
One time she took me on a tour of her property, Paradise, and she was naming these things. I said, I call them weeds. That's what they look like. But she knew the names.
Yes.
She knew them. And at 97, she knew them. Kind of a shocking passing, but at 97, hey, that's a good life.
She took me a ride in her golf cart when she was 95, I think.
Well, she still drove, from my understanding, about a month before her death. She was still driving, so.
She drove a Prius.
She did.
Kept up with modern technology.
Which was interesting. I brought that up. Her son very kindly asked me to speak at her funeral, and that's one of the things I brought up. I said, I don't know how many 97-year-olds I get email from. But I will say this, all three people here email, so you know what? There you go. Marianne, we did a couple shows with Trella.
Oh, yes. She was just an exceptional person. And she knew everything. Her historical background was great. She had a lot of stories to tell about things that happened in Marion and people that she knew. And wasn't she the one that shook President Harding's hand when she was a little girl?
Yeah.
And, that's quite a thing to remember, isn't it?
Mary Ellen, really a piece of Marion history we lost, but had her around for almost a century.
Yes, yeah. She did one of my daughter's weddings, and of course I knew her my whole life, and I really enjoyed her tremendously.
Yeah. Great lady, and sad to see her go, but again, 97's pretty good.
The real thing is, there's no one to replace a lot of these people that are dying.
No. No.
I mean, do we have any young ones coming on that would equal or attempt to equal?
Well, that whole generation, and I said it when she passed away, where are the Oliver Hamiltons, the George Browns, the Madge Guthries, the Trella Romines? They're few and far between, I think, but there's some left. There's some people left, thank goodness. Another one who passed away, who I know Charlie liked a lot also, Sky Lucy, Casper the Camel.
Oh, yeah.
Did some shows with us and passed away in February, early February.
I remembered him so well because When I was first married, I lived in those crummy those apartments on Blaine Avenue, the old hospital. And I had an old used TV set, and I used to get off of work at 1:30 and go home in the afternoon and watch Casper the Camel, Channel 6.
Well, we did a great program just over a year ago. Marianne, Charlie, and Sky and I, when he brought the camel. Remember that, Marianne?
Yes,
I thought he was such a nice guy.
he was.
The camel?
The camel,
Yeah.
too.
Yes.
Which he, I think, and I don't think he'd have a problem with me saying this, he treated it like a person.
He did.
He told me in the last interview we did that that was his best friend.
Wow.
And I thought that was kind of touching. I think Marianne, or Mary Ellen, we had talked one time that you were aware of who he was.
Yeah, I was aware of who he was, but I didn't know him. Not like everybody else did.
Very kind man. Now, I know somebody, and the moment I heard this, I wanted to call you up, Mary Ellen, Margaret Thatcher.
Oh.
Going at 86.
Yes.
You got to meet
right.
her.
Yes, I was so impressed with her. I guess, I've talked about it before on the air. I always thought she was, taller than I, but she was shorter than I was.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
She looks tall.
I know, she fakes it, I think.
High lift heels.
But, I went to her office in London, and I had a special meeting with her, and she was so nice. And then when we took pictures, she took her children and grandchildren's pictures off the mantle so there wouldn't be any other pictures up there. I thought, well, isn't that nice? She was just super, yeah.
It's interesting. I was kind of shocked, and maybe this is just me, because I had the same impression, certainly never meeting her like you did, Mary Ellen, but I had the impression a groundbreaking politician who was certainly a leader for females. But when the news came out last week, it almost seemed within 24 hours the word divisive was attached to her.
Yes,
and-
I
I
noticed
know.
that too.
Yeah.
There were
I
people that
thought-
were against her.
Yeah.
Yes, and I thought that was so strange because I didn't, well, they said they weren't going to give her a full, whatever they call it, funeral.
Yeah.
Full.
Oh, that's right. they
State
don't.
funeral, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just didn't think that
I
was right.
I couldn't
because-
understand that either.
No. Well, she evidently had some enemies, but anyway, and then I didn't think they did well for her in the movie.
I wanted
They-
to see that movie. I haven't seen it yet.
Great movie.
They dwelled too much on her dementia,
Oh,
and
did they?
And I thought you wouldn't dwell on that. That wasn't the best part of her life,
Mhm.
So I don't know, but I thought she was tremendous.
I read something, and I don't know if it's true, but one of the reasons, and part of it was that the reason for her not having a state funeral was, number one, people were threatening to blow it up. Terrible enough as that sounds, I read that story, but also she was so bitter, they said, about the way she got taken out of office, that she had said, I don't want anything to do with any state funds. She did have a rough way to go out of office, the way they took care of her, and I think maybe that was her wish. But she should have some kind of big celebration. This is the first female to be elected in a democracy in the Western world.
Yeah.
I mean, I was kind of shocked at how the news carried her passing. It was very strange, I felt. Maybe too many years out of the spotlight, Charlie? What do you think?
I think so too. It really surprised me. Tell you the same thing in the same week. Rush Limbaugh took an aggressive attack on Hillary Clinton, saying that she never did anything right. And I thought, here's Margaret Thatcher's gone. There's some controversy there, and now I don't think I'd like to be Rush Limbaugh
Well,
and say
what
anything
would you-
against Hillary.
But what would you expect out of Rush Limbaugh?
Well, you
but that,
wouldn't expect
I mean,
any.
that doesn't surprise
No.
me at all.
And so the attack is on, but I don't think I would like to attack her. Limbaugh doesn't know what he's got into.
Well, you know what? While we're on it here for a second, let's just throw this out for posterity's sake. Do you think Hillary will run? That seems to be a question already.
I
Just
think
a
I
little
think
on the
she's
election.
getting ready.
Yeah.
Now,
It-
Mary Ellen, you may know more than
I don't know, but I sure think she's going to because of what she's doing.
But she's doing right now.
Well,
She's doing a lot of traveling, seeing a lot of people.
And her support is
Support.
building and building, yes.
well,
Will-
and the gay rights thing.
Yes.
Will-
That sort of told me she's running.
Yes.
Will
Yeah.
Biden run?
What?
Will Biden
He won't
run?
run if
No,
she
won't run
runs.
if
no.
she runs.
Okay.
No.
I don't think he will.
I think it'll be interesting. I did want to get to one more name who we lost since we've met last, and Charlie brought it up before we went on the air. An Ohio guy, Jonathan Winters. I mean, none of us knew or had a connection, but boy, what a funny guy at age 87.
He sure was. I guess he attended, I don't think he graduated from Kenyon College. Of course, he was from Dayton, the
Yes.
Dayton area. But that man was a natural. He didn't need a script.
Worked at WBNS.
Did he?
Did you hear the story of why he quit WBNS?
No.
Went in for a $5 raise and they wouldn't give it to him. said he wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can you believe how a year later he's on
I
Jack
can
Parr?
believe
So
how those things happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
the world of broadcasting,
Yes.
yeah, those wonderful people who are are in
Yes.
that business.
Yeah, I just realized both of you were in broadcasting.
Yes.
Of course, I had no connection with it other than being interviewed. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I always said, Mary Ellen, when we were on radio, that I think that's your second career because you're such a great speaker, and always were, and I think that's the truth. Do want to get into something here, and certainly we remember them all, and hope they're in a better place now. But boy, they gave us a lot of joy when they were here. Can't help but mention this one, and interesting to get the thoughts of three longtime Marion residents. Boy, we're talking about heroin nowadays, aren't we? It's just
Wow.
everywhere. It's in your
Frightening.
yard. It's in the papers. Last week we had a community forum. Marianne, what have you thought about all this?
Well, it's scary. It really is scary. And I think that's the main problem that we have here in Marion as far as, our safety. Because if somebody wants drugs and they need the money to get it, they will do anything to get it. And I don't know why it's so prevalent. I really don't, but it really frightens me.
I think poverty.
That
I think that's a big part of it.
that
Yeah.
that could
Last
be.
week I watched live the discussion with the Ohio legislature. The committee is on the Medicaid issue. And there was one judge from Hocking County on there who deals every day with this problem. He said their jails are crowded. They can't put any more in jail. They need Medicaid to help try to institute some programs to rehab these people, but they don't have this now. And the thing that I've changed my attitude on how this all began, over prescribing opiates, painkillers, and a lot of these people end up with so much in painkillers they sell it on the street to buy more.
I think they do, but I think there's a good portion of those people, and just my opinion here, but I believe some sell it to get more. I agree with that. But I think some sell it to get money, because I think there is a big poverty problem going on, certainly in Marion, and I'm not really sure what it stems from. I mean, I think it's easy to say no business. I mean, of course, that's going to create poverty. But Upper Sandusky's doing pretty well, and Delaware's doing pretty well, and I'm not sure where our thing is. And nobody seems to talk about the poverty as an adjunct to heroin. And I think it's a big one. I think it's
never
a
thought
big
of it
connection.
that way. I really never did.
I just feel as Mary Ellen, you came back to Marion after being gone for several years, and certainly can't help but see this heroin problem on the television. What do you make of it?
Well, I tell you, it was sort of a surprise for me. You just don't think of Marion as having those problems, but everybody tells me it does. And I just have to mention, way back in the beginning when I was U.S. Treasurer, we were having a big meeting, and they were talking about, what was on money, and they said drugs is on money. It's just there. And that surprised me. I thought it's that bad that it's on the money, And you wouldn't think, would you?
I wouldn't think that.
No.
It's very peculiar to me how I didn't like the sign thing. I'll say that. For those people who put the signs out, heroin.
No, but it worked.
What did it accomplish, though, Charlie? What did it
Did you
accomplish?
see all the drug busts after that?
I saw the drug bust,
Oh.
but did it alert the? I'm not sure what.
No, I think it got law enforcement stirred up quite a bit. And to fend off the public opinion that they aren't doing their job as well as they could, all of a sudden you find they're busting people all over town.
But didn't it also, and this was my worry, didn't it also say to every business and every person who wants to put their kid in school here that don't come to this town? I mean, we got a big problem.
All the towns are alike all around us. We're not much of an exception. Bucyrus or Crawford County, all these towns, they're up to their ears in heroin.
They are, but I don't think they're getting the press we're getting. I don't think they're getting on the all the Columbus news stations last week talking about an unprecedented crowd turns out for heroin opiate talk. That's not good for the people who want to relocate here. That's not good for the business people. Yes, we have to address the problem. Holy moly. We have to address the heroin problem. But I don't know, putting those yard signs out there, if it shamed the cops into doing their job better. I don't know. But it certainly didn't help the business.
No, but it sure did bring about a lot more enforcement. Probably a lot of places were being watched for a long time. All of a sudden they decide they better bust them instead of just watching and waiting for more evidence or whatever.
So what would be the thinking of why they weren't busting them before?
Well, our courts demand so much evidence. You've got to have, it's like when they close down a highway for an accident for 2 hours to make all the, record everything that happened. We're so intense on all these fine points because if you go to trial, they'll, you'll go free if you can't absolutely prove without any doubt.
Maybe it did do that, and if it did do that, I think it's good, but I think we're going to have a long time trying to get out of this trench of being labeled a heroin town.
I think a lot of it had to do, with not doing something about it, was the crowding in the jails. And I think that was the big discussion during the elections, that they didn't know, how to handle this.
I'm not sure how we do handle it, and certainly it'd be a guess for any of us, but does anybody have an idea on what we can do? I hear these groups getting together, but I don't know that they're doing anything.
What do you do when every jail cell is occupied?
Yes.
You have no other place to put any of these people. Do you try to rehab them? And where do you get the money? And this is where the Medicaid thing comes in. And if everybody could have watched this live testimony at the legislature the other day, even Jody DeMahadjans was there, and she was on for quite a while testifying on how Medicaid funds are needed to help get into this rehab business. Rehab doesn't always work, but something's got to be done.
Now, where is all this heroin coming from? What's the origin?
It's from overseas, but down through Mexico and into Detroit and Chicago, and then the pipeline from Detroit to Marion.
Yes, that's...
But, is it Detroit to Marion, or is it Detroit to this area? Because as you said...
the area, yeah.
But that's what I say. It's become this idea of Marion. And being born here and being here for 30-plus years now, I don't really like... I don't like it being here, first of all. Who would? But I don't like the stigma that's being put on, because we are in a bad economic way, period. And I don't know how we're going to crawl out of that, people thinking that we're overrun with heroin. That is not going to happen. I think we have to address the heroin problem, but I don't think we can do it by putting those signs in people's yard. I don't know. If there was a correlation with more people getting arrested, that's good. But I just didn't like that. I thought it was like a bad billboard of something going on. What do you think, Mary?
Well, I think that's the case in Columbus, even, in the Columbus area. I mean, you read about that everywhere. It's just everywhere.
I think it's got to be good to have a doctor on sometime. I asked my doctor, we're hearing about all this overprescribing painkillers. But the thing is, if they don't do something this way in providing painkillers, then they could be cited for malpractice because they didn't administer enough painkillers. Well, it's a vicious circle.
It is. It sounds it.
I think it is a vicious circle. I also think, why don't we, in any town, but we're talking about Marion, so here it is, why don't we talk about the poverty? Because I think shoplifting is on the rise. I think homelessness is on the rise. Food pantries are empty. They did not used to be. And we're having this heroin epidemic. I think all those things go together, and I'm not sure why in 10 years we've not been able to get any kind of act together. And I'm not placing the blame totally on the politicians, because if their hands are tied, their hands are tied. But where are the CEOs, the people who are willing to put money into a community to develop? And maybe some of it does fall on the politicians. Charlie, do you believe we're well off financially?
I don't think we're as bad off as sometimes we're depicted as.
What do you think?
All you got to do is drive out on Mount Vernon Avenue, bumper to bumper traffic, people shopping. Yes, they are using their credit cards, but
what's on the rise
but
here,
we're
Charlie?
overflowing with people buying and selling and whatever.
Dollar stores and drug stores. We're on
No,
the
that's a
upswing.
lot of it, sure.
I think that's. I mean, Mary Ellen, certainly you know money. Is there a correlation between that?
Well, frankly, I think the economy's getting better. I'm going to turn this around. It's getting depressing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, I think you're right. The economy is getting
I
better.
think that's true.
I
Yeah.
tell you, the semis on the road are everywhere. I always base that on my analysis of the economy, and I just think we're doing better than we were. And I just paid my income tax.
Yeah, I do think we certainly are better than we were 4 or 5 years ago. I just think that's when the problem possibly started. Because I don't think this drug thing is new.
And we have, we've got a lot of food banks and a lot of distribution of food. But even some of the people that are going after this food are cheating.
Well,
They're allotted so much, but if you turn your back, they'll take twice as much.
well, is that the times? Is that people's way of doing things? What is that?
Well, I
What's
don't
that
know.
a sign of?
I don't know. To me, there's a screwball picture out there. Here we have food banks on one side, and the other side, people are spending money like crazy.
I think there's a big divide.
And then Whirlpool want 150 people, and they can't get them. So what's the story?
Well, I'll tell you something interesting that I know that I don't see too much reported on. Have you been aware of how many retail stores and food restaurants who used to do drug testing don't do it anymore?
I wouldn't be aware of that. I wouldn't know that.
If
I
they
didn't even know
tested
that
it. Yeah.
they did
Why,
drug
is
testing.
that
They'd lose
true?
all their
That's true.
employees.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think the employee would go down, because I think even the lower grade drugs that would show up as illegal, marijuana, for example, you would fail a drug test, and they need help. People need help, and nobody.
And that's never publicized enough. The fact that there's all these job openings that cannot be filled because the people won't pass the test. Does that ever enter the statistics the government puts? Unemployment figures are up this month. Why are they up?
Well, I don't understand every time because I like to think that the government is doing better. I want to think like Mary Ellen thinks and believes, and I do too. But I am tired of hearing every time they put out a good statistic, it's always, but people have dropped out of the workforce. That's why we have a better statistic. People are,
They're not
are they?
looking anymore.
I mean, is that true? Has anybody looked into that in any deep discussion?
I think they're just trying to make it look bad.
I think so,
I
too.
honestly
Yeah.
think that's a depressive thing to the good numbers that are coming out, and I don't pay attention to it.
I don't even, when I used to read that, what does this mean and how accurate is it? Because they would always attach that to the numbers. This many unemployed, but that's because la-di-da-di. I think it's a strange thing. Another thing going on in Marion, we're on the verge of losing a school, and we are going to lose a school. Marion Catholic shutting
Yes.
the doors, high school, after more than 50 years of operation in that building.
And do you know, Scott, I was at the groundbreaking for Marion
I
Catholic.
didn't know that.
Tape recorded the Bishop Reedy,
Now, what year was that?
57.
57.
Mhm.
What do you make of this? Is this something less Catholics, less people going to private school?
It's too expensive.
Too expensive. I
Yeah.
don't know what the price is.
I don't
mean,
know what
people
it is
can't
either, but I
It's a
don't.
pretty high tuition rate. And it's a shame, too, that people can't afford it. It's a good education system.
Well, see, now there we go again, though, because now we're back on money. It all comes back to money. We see.
Oh, everything's money.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so being that we can no longer support Marian Catholic, doesn't that say that things aren't better financially?
But you can't
Well-
say everything isn't better because of that. It's
No,
just,
you're right.
it's
But
just.
how much does it take to educate in public schools?
Mhm.
Money that comes from taxes. What does it cost for a public school student every
That's a
year?
good question, and I can't answer that.
Well, aside from Marion Catholic, it looks like Rutherford B. Hayes, which is the old Silver Street, Marion City School, is going to close their
Yeah.
doors. Not enough students, people
Mhm.
going to the county schools. The only school in Marion County that is showing gains in population is River Valley. I'm not sure the reason, but it's
Mhm.
Well, some
Marion.
of the population is moving in that direction.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
true.
it is.
Yeah.
They're moving outside.
Between
Yeah.
Pleasant and,
Pleasance District and River Valley,
Valleys.
they merge and they, you know,
And all the new homes are being built out there.
yeah.
I think there's something very interesting to be said, though, for Marion Catholic closing, because this was a school that had great pride. Everybody there
Oh,
had great
yes.
pride. And I'm not sure everybody always has pride in their public school. Marianne, certainly you were a teacher in the public schools for years. But I don't think they had that kind of pride. The people who are Marian Catholic would stay boosters for years. They loved it. They stayed attached. And then in the blink of an eye, here it goes. It's kind of
Yeah.
sad,
I know some Catholic families that had their children go through the grade schools,
And then,
but then they couldn't afford the
Yes.
tuition for high school.
right. Mhm.
Yeah.
I think everybody's excited in Elgin going to have everybody in one school. And but I'll tell you something, I was shocked at the water out there. We went to Green Camp today to church, and water is everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the worst I've ever seen it.
Now, I wonder what the cause of that is out there.
Rain.
Well,
Well, yeah,
yeah.
da-da-da. I understand.
Rain over a
We
short
have our
yeah,
sump pump
period of
running
time.
constantly,
Ours,
so.
yeah, mine ran, yeah.
And,
And you just hope that it doesn't burn out.
But had it always happened like that?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
we
when
just,
there's
oh, it did. It was always a
torrential
flood
rain,
like that.
yes,
Well,
it
I
it was
was
didn't
in
realize.
1913, 100 years ago.
yeah, it was
It was worse.
Okay. I don't know.
1959 was worse.
I wasn't
lived
out
in
there
that
then.
old building on Blaine Avenue, and I couldn't hardly get to work because it was flooded
Oh, yes.
down there at Columbia and Blaine.
I remember 1959
Oh, yeah,
because
that-
the water kept coming. I lived on a farm then, and the water kept coming closer and closer to our house, and it didn't get there, but it almost got there.
And then it froze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, those are the interesting things I think that have been going on in Marion. And one thing I wanted to touch on, because I think it affects everybody, these news sites have popped up on the internet, on Facebook. The one is called Heroin is Marion's Economy, but there's the Marion News and the
Oh,
real Marion News.
that's I like that.
Well, but
It's nuts. I
Well-
mean, you know,
yeah.
it's fun.
It is. That one is, but there are some that claim to be the news, and they have like 5,000 followers. And I think it's somebody listening to a scanner, I think is what it is, and that's not always accurate. I mean, I think that also affects perception
Oh,
of what's going
definitely,
on.
yes.
But people believe it. People believe anything anymore. I'm not
That's right.
sure
Hey,
why.
it's been known for hundreds of years. You can get the people, if you tell it the right way, they'll believe it.
Well, yeah, but they seem to be anti-everything. I mean, I don't hear any good news. I'd like to see some good news sometime. I didn't have this on the agenda here.
Agenda.
Yeah, agenda. But Charlie brought it up before we went on the air, and I'd forgotten about it. But what do you make of the dorms that are going to open up here in Marion, in the old Marion Star
Well,
building?
now that's really interesting. The proposed Starfish building, which is the old Marion Star building, over 100 years old, of course. That's 2 miles from campus. You usually don't put students 2 miles from a campus because there's a lot that can happen in between there and the campus.
And they don't all have transportation.
That's right. Do they bicycle to campus? Do they take a city bus? Do they come home late at night on a city bus? What about the trains keeping them awake all night long? They're right next to the railroad tracks.
The argument, though, Charlie, will be, I can hear it already, it'll be, we're trying to do something good and you're coming down on it. That's the argument.
I was thought they would put eventually housing on the campus where it ought to be.
Yes, that's where it should be.
Well, the
Yeah.
college seems to be in favor of it. Gordon Gee came down and gave it his
Well, naturally,
blessing.
he doesn't want to put a downer on Lois.
Now, why is that, Charlie? Why doesn't he want to put a downer on Lois?
Well, because she She probably contributes to the university.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. Mary Ellen, what do you think?
You wouldn't
of
say anything bad about George Albert either, would you? Bless his soul.
Bless his soul. His tips were great, that's for sure. Oh, boy. Mary Ellen, what do you think of the new dorms? We've never had dorms here in Marion. Is that a good thing?
I've been gone and I didn't know anything about it.
Oh, you got the Star now is gonna their offices are at the corner. You know the old
Marion Star.
yeah, and the Columbia Beauty Academy. What was it
Oh
called?
yeah, I used to go
Okay,
there.
in that building. Okay, that's where the Star is
Well,
now.
I don't understand then what happened to the Star. Are they
Well,
out
they
of
don't
town?
need all that building. They wanted
Are,
to get out
are
of
they
it.
producing the newspaper
All they need,
someplace
yeah,
else?
all they
aren't
need
they?
is one room like we're in right now.
Yeah, that's sad.
No, they need a little more room
Well,
than this,
no.
don't they, Charlie?
Well,
This
they have
is
to have a
little small.
restroom. I haven't seen a
You know,
sign, man or woman, on any of these doors.
You know, Scott, I have a couple questions for Mary Ellen because Ted and I were talking about this. Can I?
Go
can
ahead, I gotta
interject here?
recollect myself.
You know,
Go ahead.
we're kind of curious, that, you know, because you were the treasurer of the United States, which is unbelievable. What kind of a staff did you have, and how many people were involved with your particular area?
Well, my actual staff was very small, but I was responsible for about 5,000 people.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
that's what we wondered. We thought,
Yeah, I had my I mean when my choice of person was my counselor because I felt I needed law enforcement. I needed to do everything correctly, so I chose my lawyer friend. But then there was an employee from the Bureau of Engraving and Printing and an employee from the Mint. And then I did all this work for the savings bonds, and then I did not have any supervision over the savings bonds at all, but I did over the Mint and the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. So the Mint, actually the Mint was about 2,500 people, and
wow.
the Bureau
That's interesting.
was about 2,500 people. Yeah, but my staff was in my office there in the Treasury, and it worked. It was, and the interesting part, and my budget was almost nothing, and I'll tell you why. Because it was a real plus to have a nothing budget.
Really?
Yes, because everything they wanted you to do, they had to pay for. If the Bureau wanted me to do something, they paid for it.
You didn't
If
have
the Mint
to.
wanted me to do something, they paid for it. If savings bond, they paid for it. And if political people wanted me to do something, they paid for it. I had to pay for absolutely nothing.
So
almost.
that was
Yeah.
good not to have a budget then.
Yes, yeah, it protected me.
Sure.
Yeah, and I didn't have anybody criticizing me, and people would say, well, we paid for your travel. No, they didn't. Actually, my travel was paid for by what was called the Education Fund, that was in the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, that where people bought things in the Bureau, where you go and you buy sheets of money and
Oh.
and stationery and everything. It's made out of money, and that's what paid for my doing all of the coin shows and everything like that. Yeah, it was
I've
interesting.
always been
Yeah.
interested in that and never asked you
Yeah,
that question.
yeah.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
No, that's interesting. That's
I'm
interesting.
glad you did, because it's worth people knowing.
Yes.
You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just now we're going to kind of slip back here into the national. We've done, I think, the local things in the last 4 or 6 months. Nationally, you can't get away from it. My goodness, there are two stories that seem to be dominating, three now with North Korea, dominating the national news, and we can be seen nationally here via the internet. Certainly gun control. Holy moly. This is all over the place and in negotiation and all kinds of things ever since the shooting in December. Charlie, what do you think about this? They wanted to ban assault. I hope I get this right. They wanted to ban assault rifles. That ain't going to happen. Now they're going after background checks. Looks like that's iffy.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Background checks. I think it's one of the only ways they can control this whole thing, to make sure the guns are in the right hands. Not to go in homes and take them away now from people, but further purchases, intense background checks.
You know, Marianne, I'm not sure. I understand the shotgun and I understand, I guess, the handgun. I don't understand the semi-automatic gun.
I don't either.
I
and
don't
you
get
don't
that.
need that for hunting.
Wouldn't think
you
so.
know what the problem is? The NRA is the most powerful lobby in the country. And they have people that are selling guns, and they want to sell more and more and more and more. So it all has to do with money. That's what it has to do with.
What I didn't realize, at gun shows you can buy a gun without a background check.
Yes.
I
you
didn't.
don't-
I
yeah, the
thought
gun
you had
show,
to have
you
background
can-
checks.
And that's where all of these people who are
Oh.
not very nice people get their guns.
Either that or they steal them.
Yes.
Or whatever they do. Mary Ellen, you got any feeling one way or another on this?
Oh, I've been against assault rifles, and I agree that everybody can have a gun that is reasonable.
Me too.
But the NRA has been a problem for years, and they have been selling guns right and left since this has been going on, which is really disgusting. And Pierre, whatever his name is,
LaPierre. Yeah, Pierre.
yes, he's a piece of work.
Yeah.
And
Well, aren't we the most violent country in the world? Or the
well,
second
we seem to
violent?
be, yeah.
I think I read that someplace. We are.
Well,
I mean,
I think
horrible
I
things.
think we have more gun deaths in the United States than anywhere else in the
I
world.
think we do too.
Now, what I don't understand, though, is if you have a semi-automatic weapon, what are you going to do with that thing? I mean, what do we use that for, Charlie?
I've been down to the gun range here down near east of Waldo, and people have a lot of fun, doing target practice.
Do
with
they use
even
semi-automatic
machine guns?
Machine gun?
Yeah.
They take machine guns?
Yeah, right. There's people that come up from Columbus with their machine guns and fire into the hill down there. They're just having a great time of it.
But is that a good
as long as they
thing?
don't turn around and shoot their neighbor.
But no, Charlie, now you haven't said. You're the only one. Do you feel there should be semi-automatic weapons available?
Well, a
You're
hobbyist.
unsure. You're unsure.
He's not
Charlie.
sure. It felt like he was on the...
wondering
I'm
Yeah,
wondering
why not,
about
Charlie?
you, Charlie.
Well, really, we don't need them except for hobby purposes.
Hobby?
A person likes to collect guns and
What happened to
shoot high.
stamps?
I shot an AK-47.
You shot an AK
Yeah.
where?
Well, a friend of mine, a relative of mine, owns one.
But was that
It was
necessary?
fun.
Oh.
I shot cans off a fence post. Man,
So for recreation,
Yeah,
you like them
yeah.
for recreation.
I didn't break into buildings and shoot people. I mean, there are a lot of people just love guns.
I understand that. I don't think we should take their guns away, but I don't know about these semi-automatic things. They seem a little problematic to me.
Yes, I think the police need them and our military need them, but why does an individual need them?
Well, that's what I was wondering until I went down to the gun range. You ought to do that sometime and see all those people down there, how serious they are. I mean, some of those guns are so big, they have to have props to hold them up, and boy, when they fire them, wow.
It's all a male thing,
It
isn't
is.
it?
It really is.
It's a power
Yeah.
thing. It's a
Okay, I accept that. But okay, when it comes to the politics of this thing, we want the semi-automatic gun ban. We want it, we want it, we want it. And then the NRA came down and said, oh, that ain't going to happen.
I know.
And they have pushed it now to the point where we can barely get a background check. Is it just going to be that way forever, Mary Ellen? Is this ever going to change?
I'm constantly amazed at these people that are in an office that are supposed to be taking care of this, that are taking a stand against it or however they're doing it. It's amazing to me that they can't work something out, because after Newtown, I thought something would happen.
Well, you
And-
would think, and all those people from Newtown
Yeah, they went
that
to
lost their
visit.
children.
Yeah, they visited them.
But it's not just Newtown. It's every
Everywhere.
city in the country
That's right.
has problems with that.
Well, it seems a problematic issue when we have two of the biggest gun massacres, I think is what I would call them, within 6 months of each other, Aurora and Newtown, and they use the same weapon. In the same, I mean, this weapon is a problem, I think. I mean, why are they using it? It's going to go on, but I don't know what's going to get done with that.
It's greed. Greed. Greed.
Is it that, or is it the gun? Do you think it's about the money or the gun?
Why are people buying?
Well, it's the law. I'm talking about the lobby.
Right, but do you think the lobby wants to go out and shoot cans off a fence? I mean, is there anything to that? They actually
No,
want
they
the
just
gun?
want to sell their guns.
Want to sell their... Okay.
Well,
But
there-
what gets me, and I'm worried about this, the fact that our gun shops are crowded, their parking lots are crowded with customers. You could hardly buy ammunition. People are buying it up. Why are they buying all this ammunition?
They are
Now,
afraid.
answer that one.
They are afraid the government
Is
is
there-
going to come out and get them.
Yeah, it sounds to me like we're the basis for a revolution.
Oh, boy. Hope I'm not around for that one. That sounds a
Are
little
you
rough.
Me
thinking
neither.
people are getting guns?
Why would they be arming themselves so heavily?
Well, that's what I mean. It's
Yeah. I don't know. There's
I don't know. I hear these people talk, and they say it wants to be. What is that? Oh boy, the word just left my
You know,
brain.
Can
To
you
me,
imagine a
it's
store selling
ignorance.
out of ammunition?
To me, it's ignorance. People are ignorant. Sorry.
I'd say we are just making friends everywhere we go today.
Oh, you
Well,
bet.
are we going to talk about North Korea now?
Yes, I.
Oh,
well, you know
that
what?
little
Let's.
stubby guy.
Yeah.
Oh, man, he's
He's a friend of Dennis
the
Rodman, so
epitome
you got to
of-
give him that.
a lump of coal.
I have a North Korea story
Oh,
for you.
okay. Let's hear that.
Well, I went to Seoul, and I was going to visit where they manufactured their money and observe that. And one of the employees, a woman, had stolen money that worked there. And so they were so embarrassed that they said, we're closing it down, and we'll take you somewhere else, wherever you want to go. So I wanted to go to the DMZ.
Oh.
And so I found that truly fascinating, where they were, knowing who we were, and we were, the North Korean soldier was right outside the window, and I was inside the window, and within about 3 feet of one another. And I often wondered what happened to this girl that took the money, and I never found out, but they were so embarrassed.
Mhm.
Probably executed her.
Yeah, they probably did
Yeah.
something to her. Yeah.
Well, what I can't understand is North Korea and South Korea, they're all Koreans. Why do they hate one another?
It's like the United States. We were all one at one time. Then we had a civil war.
Yeah,
Well, but I
guess-
think there's more to it than that. I think the Southern Koreans seem to be, I don't know for what purpose, a little more rational. I don't know, or at least to our thinking, I guess.
Yeah. What scares me is that North Korea, of course, their closest ally is China.
Yes.
China is no small country. Billions of people over there. And if we attacked North Korea again, or defended ourselves, what would China do?
Well, China right now is allied with the United States
Yeah,
as far as trying to get this
somewhat,
settled.
right.
Yes,
Yes.
they are, and so is Japan, obviously,
There are a lot of men in
and
Mar-
South
yeah,
Korea.
a lot of men in Marion that were veterans of the Korean War, and I feel so sorry for them. They get very little attention, and a lot of them had lost legs and have told me about all the rigors, the terrible aspects of the Korean War. That was horrible war.
But
Well, the Chinese are afraid that they're going to get all these refugees.
Yes,
That's what they're afraid
they
of.
are afraid of. Yes.
Oh,
you know, I'm confused though, because North Korea, and I hear the horror stories, they have the nuclear weapons. Now they have one that they say could possibly reach California, maybe not. But what I don't get is people seem to want to go in there. It almost seems like everybody's amping up. You know, everybody's getting a little, "Ooh, let's do something." Now, I did hear the other day, thank goodness, that the administration says we're going to try to bargain with them. We're going to try diplomacy first, which we didn't do a few years ago. But how bad, we always say we don't want to be the world policeman. We say that, we say it all the time when there's nothing going on. Is this an example of that, or could North Korea really theoretically do a lot of damage to us?
They could hardly get off the ground before we'd take
Yeah,
care
actually,
of them.
we have defenses for that.
We have
Yeah,
much
we
more
do have.
sophisticated weaponry than they
Yes.
do.
Well, to me, it seems
And
like it's
a lot of people are thinking, this young, he's very young, the North Korean, and he's trying to show strength.
He's
and
a bully.
Right, and this is what his way of showing strength, that, he's young, that's true, but he can do damage.
Well, you know what? And I'm sorry that people thought Dennis Rodman going over there was a joke, because you know what? It reminded me of the ping pong thing years ago. When they remember that? I mean, it was such a silly, stupid thing,
Right.
ping pong, but it was a commonality, and
Yes.
they got together around
Right.
it, and there never was a big falling out. I don't like Dennis Rodman. I don't know Dennis Rodman.
Why
but
was he there?
Basketball.
Basketball, because because the new premier loves basketball.
But was
Oh.
he okayed by the United States? That's the question.
I don't know that he was.
You don't go to another country
Yeah.
unless your government
That's
approves it.
Yes.
Well, now here's an interesting thing, and I think this is going to be, we're going to tie a lot of things together here, but it's going to fit, because weird, as Dennis Rodman goes to North Korea, Beyonce and Jay-Z are down in Cuba, and people seem to be unhappy about that.
Yes.
Why are they in Cuba? Did they get permission? Because the government never really says if they gave them permission or not. Do you think they were given permission to go to Cuba?
What do you think the Fonda girl did when she went to Vietnam?
Well,
and
but
was
I
the
think
cause
it was,
of a lot of our men being killed or
yeah, but that was
tortured to death?
that was what
and
she
now they
did
want to
there.
make her Woman of the Year?
Well, now see, I don't know about that, because I think it's what she did there. She got on top of the tank. I think had she just gone there, it wouldn't have been a big story. But years later, we all said Vietnam was the wrong war. So what did she do that was, I don't know.
That was wrong?
Yeah, because I don't
She
think
was anti-America.
Oh, I don't know that.
Oh,
Shirley.
yes.
I don't.
She's going to play Nancy Reagan in the
Oh,
movie.
that's a pity. That is a...
No, was she? Now I don't
Hey,
know.
you ask some of the prisoners that suffered because of her. The most touted story is when the men wrote their, Social Security numbers down or something, and shook hands with her or something, she took all those and gave them to the enemy. And to show that they were trying, they wanted her to contact the relatives to let them know they were okay at the time or whatever, but she instead gave their names or whatever it was to the Vietnamese, and the Vietnamese then said, because of that, they got tortured and beat up, bruised. Oh, terrible.
Well,
All
now,
because of Jane Fonda.
well, if that's true, then that's horrible. Yes, but
Yes,
I don't.
it is.
But
I'm surprised that she hasn't been accosted by a Vietnam veteran.
Well, I think the issue was that people ended up thinking, because she was in horrible straits with them years later, and I think she has apologized for a lot of that, taking the pictures. But I think what happened there was, at that time, I mean, now to talk about it, it's hindsight. But at that time, a lot of people did think the Vietnam War was a big, wrong, gigantic mistake. And I think that's what she felt. Now, did she do it the right way? Maybe not in a lot of people's eyes. But I think we make a lot of mistakes, the United States. We're a fairly new country considering the histories of other countries around the world. I think the fact that we tortured during the Iraq War probably did not bode too well for any of our prisoners in other places. So Jane Fonda, she's a movie star. She's not a politician. I mean, if people want to pay attention
why did she do
to her,
this? Why did she go over to
I
Vietnam?
think she was overly political. I think she felt that the war was wrong.
Can you imagine during World War II if some of our people went overseas and did what she did?
Well, I think it would have been bad, but I think people look at Vietnam different, and as horrible as it was, and I totally disagree with this, and I want to say that, Vietnam veterans were spit on when they came back.
I know very well.
At that time, people were very angry with that war. I mean, let's look at the, and I'm American, heaven knows, and I support this country, but look at the My Lai massacre. I mean, does anybody study that? The guys go in there, and they knew there was no soldiers in that village, and they shot women and babies. And when they were asked about it, why'd you do that? Just one of those things. One of those things. Well, what does that do for America? I know.
Yeah.
Stern on that.
That is
No,
terrible.
let's talk about something
Yes,
else.
that was a little rough.
Yeah.
No, but
Is there anything good going on?
Woo,
Is there anything
but-
positive?
Hey, they're
Well, no,
redoing Route 95.
we started to talk about this years ago.
Yeah.
What's going on with Route 95?
They're going to add a bike lane. And they're going to
good.
change the traffic lights around and do
Oh,
this
that's
and that.
good.
Yeah, big project that's underway right now.
I do want to end with a funny note. It's one of those studies that they're always talking about. And we'll end with this. People who do not apologize are happier. Did you know that?
Wow.
And
That's interesting.
I think this fits this conversation. I think
Oh, how could
nobody's
that
going to
be?
apologize, and we're all going to leave
Oh,
happier.
if I ever do something that I'm sorry for, I have to apologize, or I'm miserable.
The report says that people who do not apologize are happier because it gives them a greater sense of self-worth and dignity about what they...
Oh.
Well, then they have no conscience. Those people have no conscience.
Well, I mean, I think you apologize if you feel you're wrong, but I think some people apologize sometimes just to apologize.
I don't know, but
Haven't you ever been forced to apologize?
I don't agree with that statistic.
But in the meantime, we've got a lot of industry going in Marion. We've got a lot of people employed, and a lot of good things are going on. And
Well, and
but
I
it's more
really-
exciting to talk about the bad things.
But I really think that the people in charge of things here in Marion are trying to do something about the
yeah.
heroin problem. I really
Yeah.
do. You see them talking about it. I'm sure they have committees. I'm sure they have
And this
plans
is happening
and-
all over the United States.
Yes, it's not
The
just
problem
us.
is not all in Marion.
Yeah.
Now, like I saw this testimony the other day before the legislature, this one county, over half the people are on drugs, and they can't. They have no money for rehab programs, nothing. And this poor judge, he almost cried because in the courts he faces people every day, and he just throws up his hand. What can I do?
You know what? This reminds me, and this was one of the last things I had written. I wasn't going to do it, but we're going to do it. This is a simple, easy thing. This because it was a bizarre story that came out. That did you hear about this? President Obama had to apologize for a comment he made.
Oh,
Did you hear about this?
That was
this
ridiculous.
was so silly.
That was
That
silly.
he had to. Yeah, it's if you didn't hear about
because
it.
he complimented a person on his staff, right?
Yeah, it
Well,
was.
it was a woman running for office, wasn't it?
The
In
Attorney General,
California?
Attorney
Attorney
General,
General,
and
that's right.
Camilla Harris.
Yeah.
He said, and this is what he said. This is the quote. She happens to be by far the best-looking Attorney General in the country.
Yes.
And people jumped all over him and said, "You need to apologize," and he did. Do you think that's okay, Marianne?
No, I think his comment was fine. And you know something? If a woman said that about a man, nobody would say anything, would they? If I said, "Oh, he's a handsome man," nobody would think anything of it. But the fact that he said something about a woman made a big difference.
Maybe it was the other Attorney Generals. They were jealous.
Well,
They were
I
upset.
thought about the other attorney generals because there's other women attorney generals, and I thought, I wonder what they think.
You know, Mary Ellen, we had one of the most popular segments that was ever done on this show. I don't know if you've seen it. I'm going to send it to you if you haven't. We had Mary Ellen and Miss Ohio on the program. Remember, and the conversation was somebody had used a curse word
Right.
at a graduation.
Oh, yeah, he wouldn't let it alone.
No, I felt I was right about this.
No, you argued with us and argued, and
And
because
what-
you didn't agree with us.
But the story was that the valedictorian of this school last year said something in her speech, her graduation speech, like, and it was hell or damn. It was a real minor curse word. It was hell. And they held her diploma.
She said, hell no.
Yeah.
Hell no.
Yeah.
Hell no was right.
Instead
That
of
was
heck no.
heck no.
Yeah.
But so they held her diploma. Now, Mary.
That's ridiculous.
Now, see, that's what I said, Marianne. And
I think it's ridiculous.
Miss Ohio and Mary Ellen were all over me for that.
I
No.
said that she represented people. She shouldn't use that language. I did not dare use that language when I was in office. I wouldn't have said that.
Oh,
You know, you
That's
have
for
a
sure.
certain stigma when you're in a
Well, that's true.
representative
Yeah,
situation.
I can see that.
Yeah.
But,
and
you know-
she was representing the student body with
I-
that speech.
But if she said hell, I mean, a lot of people say hell. You know, there is a place called hell. I mean,
I
But
don't
you know,
think
there's
so.
a petition going around now on the internet. There's a group that supposedly the FCC is going to okay the use of the F word and nudity. And there's
On
this,
radio, nudity?
and there's
On radio?
Boy, that's been coming
How
for
about that?
years.
But no, and this group is trying to get this big petition up give to the FCC so they won't do this.
I was drawing a conclusion.
Are they considering it?
I
Really?
don't
Well, I
know.
think-
But the crossroad, as we try to get out of this episode, is that the thing I was trying to tie to the girl saying hell in her speech, because he is the president, should he have said it? Because people found it, we don't like that. Because of the
Well, I
valedictorian,
guess
they
there's
went,
a
oh,
point,
wait a second.
a point to
We
that.
don't,
but-
I'm not saying he should have
Yeah.
apologized. I'm just saying I took the heat for saying that she shouldn't have said hell. Just because she was, if she would have said that, sitting in her seat, said, well, this is a hell of a show, I don't think they would have held her.
Rush Limbaugh says this all day long, on his
Exactly.
programs.
So
yeah.
finally, should Obama have apologized?
You actually listen to him?
I do occasionally
We're
when I want to get
curious.
my blood circulating.
I'm starting to wonder about you. You listen to Rush Limbaugh, and you like assault weapons.
I know. We have
I'm
to start
waiting-
getting worried
I'm
here.
waiting. I think he's meeting his match with Hillary. When he condemns Hillary, he said she's never done a good thing in her life.
Oh, that's a terrible statement.
Oh, yeah, but this is him. See, he gets people all worked up, like me.
You know what I can't understand? I can't understand how people listen to him
I don't either.
and think he's so wonderful.
Well, I
Yeah.
tell you what,
And he makes
He's cheap.
millions and millions of dollars for all of that.
radio
junk.
stations, all
Yeah.
AM radio stations,
Yeah.
find this an easy way. They don't need a staff. He comes in on satellite. They don't even need one person. They can lock the building up.
You know,
And Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, Bob Savage.
Glenn Beck.
Glenn
Glenn Beck.
He's
Oh,
another-
Hannity.
There was apparently it was just a rumor that Glenn Beck was going to go on at 9 in the morning on MRN.
Oh,
They were
really?
taking off
Oh,
radio,
if they take off Tradio,
Tradio
they'll
and
level the building.
the talk show and everything. It was going to be Jeff Ruth up to 9 and then, satellite feed the rest of the day. They were going to get rid of all their employees. But
Oh.
that was on April 1st.
Oh, that was a rumor.
Yeah,
Well,
apparently
that'd have
was.
to. But think of how dangerous Rush Limbaugh is going to be when he can say the F word and get nude, because that's apparently right around the corner.
Yeah.
Then he'll be a
But,
real massacre. He'll be a real threat.
But Limbaugh and all those have never been able to really influence anything that happened politically, even though they rant and they rave
Yes.
all day long for years and years. They haven't been able. Sean Hannity, and we're going to get rid of Rush Limbaugh, Barack Obama.
Barack Obama.
Only 30 days left in his reign, and he goes on. That's sickening. Oh, I tell you, he's so sickening.
But
Yeah.
people
But
listen.
people voted for Obama and reelected him.
Yes, I mean the people
They
spoke.
had no
I mean,
effect at all.
no, how could they?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't listen to
I'm
him.
waiting for your answer.
I don't know why people listen to him.
I don't even
My
know.
goodness, it is
But-
a strange world, isn't
But
it?
anyhow, it's cheap radio.
It is cheap radio.
AM radio is a loser, even though there are some good programs. But they're finding it's cheaper to get rid of your staff and just do satellite feeds.
Wait, why is it a loser? I don't understand. I think AM radio's interesting. Not I don't
It-
not
it
not the
can
not the
be.
political show.
But it's all political anymore. You tune across the dial in the daytime, and all you hear is Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity. Clear across the dial.
Glenn
Hundreds-
Beck used to be on. Where's he now?
He's off.
Oh.
I don't know where he is.
Well, it's my understanding that's because Washington is now Hollywood. There is no Hollywood anymore. People used to like the dirt sheets. Now it's all politics. I think that's kind of true because what do we have for entertainment anymore? We have Snooki and the Kardashians. I mean,
And
You
that
have to
baby, what's her name?
yeah.
Oh, that is.
Baby,
Oh, that's the worst.
what is it?
Baby Boo,
Yeah.
Boo Boo.
Boo Boo.
Boo Boo.
That shows when Americans come around. Oh. I was out to a school.
Honey
Hey,
Boo Boo.
Honey Boo
Honey Boo Boo.
Honey
I was
Boo
out to
Boo.
a school fun night the other night, and I counted 13 people on their cell phones all through the.
I know.
Isn't it?
You know something? I
Oh.
know I sound like I'm ancient, but I think technology eventually is going to do us in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
almost,
I mean, these kids, you never see them, their faces. You only see them looking down at iPads or cell
Yeah.
phones. And, you go to dinner at people's houses and their kids are at the table going,
I was.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
no communication whatsoever.
I was in a doctor's
Oral
office.
communication.
Yeah.
I was in this doctor's office waiting, and a family of 3 or 4 came in, and they were all on their cell phones talking to one another while they were waiting.
They were bored.
It's
Margaret-
a whole different world out there.
This show, Margaret Thatcher, Jane Fonda, Rush Limbaugh, Honey Boo Boo. That's
Can't
where
beat
I went.
that.
What show can you listen to or watch where you can get all those in an hour?
That's right.
That's pretty good. We discussed them all. Well, it's always a pleasure to have you three around. It's an interesting conversation because it's opinions, people who care, pay attention. It's always a lot of fun to see all of you. We have to do it again sometime soon.